You know, it's almost commonplace in this country now that we all believe the rich should pay more, right? And this is the effort of the government to commit class warfare between us. And you and I, pretty much a capitalist at heart, believe that there's some room for that. But what happens is this becomes a slippery slope. As we adopt more and more socialism, we slide into more and more taking that wealth from somebody and giving it to somebody else. And where does it stop? And I always ask my liberal friends, where is the stoppage point? And it seems to be never ending. And my discussion today will help you understand where the country is going in its tax movement to help better protect you, an affluent investor. And the cold hard facts are that wealthy investors are now paying more in taxes than they have in the last 40 years. Here's the issue, and what I'll describe in detail today for you is that when you give the government the ability to define who's rich, you can be included in that. And in fact, the inclusion rates are fairly low. What has this yielded to? Well, it's very interesting. In this graphic that you're going to see on the screen, you'll see that the top 5% earners pay over 60% of all income tax. You can see that obviously that is a large burden of the taxes are shifted onto these people. And again, you might say, you know, they're rich, they should pay more. But I want you to see where the slippage is going to. And, you know, the question is, where's it going to stop? So I'd like to tell a little story. I recently made a new hire, and she's doing wonderful here, and she's learning some of these things that I'm teaching you today. And, you know, I was playing around with her, and I said, hey, you know, the rich should pay more. Doesn't that sound good? And she said, yes, they should pay more. And, you know, I kind of agree with that. And then I said, but here's the thing, you're rich. And she said, there's no way I'm rich. You know, I'm fairly recent college graduate. I've had a few jobs after that. Now I'm with you, Jay. I'm not rich. I pointed out to her that you don't get to make that call. And then I showed her these tax brackets. And you can see here by the color coding how they're redefining wealth. There's a significant jump from the 12% to the 22% bracket at a relatively low income range. Do you see the danger in allowing the government to define who's rich and who isn't? This doesn't even go into the argument if you do believe in wealth transfer. Do you really believe in the government being able to establish who gives the wealth and who receives it? That's very problematic. We would say, okay, well, the rich should pay more, so that establishes who they take the wealth from, right? But then who determines where the wealth goes to? In Buffalo, we just had this big deal where a billionaire took taxpayer money to build a new football stadium. Think about that. Because the government's involved, and they can pick winners and losers. They can pick where they take the money from and who they give the money to. It's a dangerous, slippery slope. So that's example number one of the redefinition of the rich in the tax code. Let's go into example number two, and that is capital gains tax. So capital gains tax goes up appreciably between $94,000 and about $83,000 in that range, and it goes from 0 to 15%. Now you might say, well, you know, somebody that made $500,000, then, you know, that's a lot of money. That's a good definition of rich. But think about this. There's all kinds of different ways to grow wealth, to grow capital assets. It might be a business owner that doesn't actually have a 401k, that all their wealth is built into their business. And when they sell that business, they're going to pay a relatively high tax rate. In fact, I've seen it where the combination of income and capital gains rates on the sale of a business can approach 50%. So just think about that. You spent your whole life working, sacrificing, making payroll, paying taxes that whole time on income, and then you go to sell your lifelong sacrifice, and you can pay 40, 50% on that sale. Who would want to do that? If you're married filing joint and you make over $44,000 in retirement, 85% of your Social Security is going to be taxable at your rate. So think about that. They've defined the highest income tax bracket for Social Security for joint at $44,000. That's not a very high bar. A lot of people, I don't know what the percentage is, maybe we'll research that, make over that. Now, I deal with people that have saved, and so I can say without almost any exception, all my clients make over that. And almost all of those clients are surprised when I tell them that 85% of your Social Security would be taxed, which the pay into the Social Security was a tax anyway, right? Because presently, as an employee, 6.2% of your paycheck, and the employer puts 6.2% of the paycheck in. So as represented by the wages, right, we've got what? 12.6% going in every year, millions of Americans working away, pushing that money into the federal coffers. The other key point is when the government gets involved in the redistribution business, they take their fair share, right? Because government employees don't work for free. They all need to be paid. And they also have a government retirement system that needs to be paid for. And it's very inefficient. And my last point on this, I think, is probably the most important point, is that all organizations operate in their own best interest. And that would include government, right? Businesses operate on their own best interest. Employees operate on their own best interest. And governments operate on their own best interest. And again, this adds to the slippery slope of socialism in that government's best interest in their mind is to grow and create more bureaucracy. Of course, demands more revenue, more taxation, and that's where America is today. The government has gone out of control, continues to spend way more than it brings in, and is creating a huge overall deficit that will all be transferred to us at some point in the future because they're not going to be able to afford the interest payments on the debt. I think as rich and poor Americans, this is all a concern for us and how involved the government is getting in this redistribution business.